Hello, Mark Petzold here, Freedom Fire USA. Thanks for watching this video. This is going to be a video about Independence Day. I have to say it's probably one of my favorite times of the year, if not my most favorite time of the year. I hope y'all are having a great year so far, in spite of the weather, but are primed up to enjoy this Independence Day. So, again, this video, I hope to give you something, an unusual perspective that will make it so that you maybe enjoy this Independence Day a little bit more and perhaps a little bit different. And so give it a watch and see what you think, okay? So, I have to ask the question, what are people celebrating? I remember watching some people get out of a car, and at the time their car was just layered with Obama bumper stickers, and they were coming back from their car from shopping, and they had all this fireworks, all this red, white, and blue stuff, and actually I gotta admit I was actually a little bit upset because I'm thinking you people are actually destroying this country, and I was thinking, man, what are they actually celebrating? The 4th of July? Who cares? Independence Day? I don't even think they know what independence is. It's just some of those thoughts that went through my mind. And again, with these videos, I want to throw in a little bit of my experience as a Tea Party leader and to kind of draw it all home. And, in 2010, we were in Washington, D.C. By we, I mean, there was quite a few people there, but relatively small rally considering some of the other ones we've had in D.C. But in 2010, there was maybe 7,000 people there at the most, and that was regarding when Obamacare was getting pushed through. And I was there with my son and my sister and my brother-in-law, and we were doing some different things, including leading chants, things like that, at the Capitol building, and we were invited into the House of Representatives, and basically Bart Stupak, a Michigan representative from the Upper Peninsula, was the last pro-life Democrat to cave regarding abortion being in Obamacare. And so basically Obama had signed an executive order taking it out, legislating, which an executive can't do. And so what we were watching Bart Stupak get chewed out by this Texas representative, and I'll never forget the fact that this never made the news or anything, and this Texas representative took all the papers on his desk and he threw them, and he was yelling at Bart, saying, that the executive order isn't worth the paper it was written on, and the blood of countless children are on your hands. And the representative was right. I don't even know which one it was from Texas. But basically dawned on me, and I'm sitting there thinking, what do I do? Do I do something? I feel like I should do something. I'll go to jail. Do I go to jail? And I didn't. I admittedly did not do anything. But I felt like we were watching the signing of the Declaration of Dependence that day. Even though that wasn't signed into the law at that moment, it is the moment when it was accepted that Obamacare was law, even though it was pushed through reconciliation and with Obama legislating and other things. It should have been easily thrown out at the Supreme Court, but it wasn't. That was something we saw. It was a signing of Declaration of Dependence. So with that in mind, where does that leave us now in America? Are we the same country we were? I have to say no, we aren't. We still have our heritage. Nobody can take that away. Nobody can take our God-given rights away. But you know what? Our God-given rights are not unique to us just because we're Americans. This is something that a lot of Americans struggle with. They say, well, we're in America, so we're unique. These are human rights that come from God. He didn't give it just to Americans. He gave Adam and Eve freedom of choice in the garden, and they promptly ate the fruit from the knowledge from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, but he gave them free will. And those Adam and Eve weren't Americans, and so we got to think about this for a minute. So back in the day when the signing of the Declaration of Independence happened, that happened through an elected body of representatives that went. Now I maintain, because America is where it's at, having cycled through the Great Experiment, we've kind of ridden it all the way through. I would have to say that a different type of independence is what is necessary for restoration in America, and that's why we call it individual independence. So back in the day was representative independence. They were elected to go do what they did in Philadelphia. I'm seeing individual independence. So what does that mean? Well, John Adams says our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for the government of any other. So what does that mean? That means if now that we've had America, the fact is if we don't have our act straight, we will not have freedom in America. And I think it's safe to say that it will take a miracle to have full restoration in America. People are saying, Mark, you're never Trumper. Listen, folks. I mean, I care about Trump, but I don't care about Trump because you know what? Trump is finite. He will not be president for long. And when you think in the terms of generations and the fact that those coming up are not going to have President Trump as a president. So if your hopes are in Trump, remember he's finite. Okay, so I would like to kindly ask that we move on beyond Trump. So again, John Adams says we need to be a moral and religious people. So basically, what does that mean? I'm going to talk about idolatry for a moment. Now, if people have listened to me, they've heard about idolatry, but I have a question for you: when was the last time you heard of idolatry? When was the last time you heard of idolatry at your church? When's the last time you've considered idolatry? And so I would just basically describe idolatry as anything that you put in between your relationship between you and God. Okay, so it's pretty simple. It's when you say, you know what, God, this conviction that I'm getting right now is not really convenient for what I feel I need to do for the ends to justify the means, for my behavior to give me the results that I want. So that's idolatry. So it's anything that gets in the way of your relationship with God or substitutes for God. So I'm going to do my confession now. People always say, well, Mark, you're on a high horse or whatever the case. So my confession is I do suffer from idolatry. I truly do. There are several things in my life that I constantly have to work on, but one that's apropos for today is a love of country. I love this country. I truly do. There's times where my love for this country interferes with my ability to walk closely with God and walk in the way that Christ has walked in the example that he's given. I've given to my emotions because of the fact that I love this country. So I'm hoping this example will help you identify idolatry in other areas of your life. Now, ultimately, the question would be, is for me, Mark, would you consider America going by the wayside if that's what God had in store? You could argue, that is God's plan or not God's plan or whatever. But I tell you what, I white knuckle this country, and I don't want that to happen. I also suffer from idolatry with my family. I think about the generational effect of our poor governance, and I'm greatly concerned for the future of our for my descendants, to be quite honest. And it makes me mad. And you know what? I don't think anger is bad in and of itself. You need to handle it appropriately. Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Be expeditious with what it is that's put on your heart. Don't play around. But let me pose this to you for a second, okay? In America, we've had the greatest freedoms in the history of the world. Okay, so these greatest freedoms has given us great prosperity and has allowed us to be the light to the world. I'm not sure that people could say we're the light to the world right now with all the just the moral degeneration going on in our society. We're hurting. I mean, you could argue that we're not hurting, but I say just look at the news, and I don't know what to tell you if you still say we're not hurting. So we've had the greatest freedoms in America, but that also positions us for the greatest fall. So, when you think about the greatest fall, that scares me to death because there's been some pretty big falls in world history. There's been lots of things I don't even like to think about that's happened in world history. And I pray that God intervenes before these things happen, but we're positioned for that now. This is not a doom and gloom message. It truly is not, because I do have faith in God. I do believe that He has dominion over all, and I do believe that He works through us. But we need to work with Him. We need to be open vessels. So again, we have the greatest freedom, the greatest fall. So I say it actually positions us for the greatest restoration. So because of the fact that we're struggling and because we've fallen and lost our way, it actually does position us to be a light to the world through restoration. I'm hoping you can have a vision for that, you know. And Matthew 6:33, this verse, if you can't, I mean, just study this verse. I mean, you've heard it before if you've known the Bible, but Matthew 6:33, seek the kingdom of God above all else, and live righteously, and He will give you everything you need. Everything we need, not necessarily everything we desire, but everything we need. I mean, do you believe that or do you not believe that? I mean, I do believe that. And I believe that He has a plan, and He's gone out in front of us, and He can make a lot out of He can use our mistakes to actually work His plan. But He does look for our participation. And that's what we're here for, is to have a relationship with Christ. So I guess I would have to ask you, going back to the premise of this this message being about Independence Day, think about the big picture. Consider where God is inconvenient for you in your life. Think about places that you quit seeking God first and His righteousness. And, I'm going to speak bluntly here. There's a spirit of politics that's very strong in this country, where we start talking about different things that that aren't. I don't know where you find the biblical support for some of the things that we accept to be normal in America. But I would say for a lot of people watching this video that the spirit of politics is a pretty big substitute for a relationship with God. In other words, you're looking for politics to be your provider and to be your subsistence. So just consider that. There's other things too. There's obviously different addictions that rule your life, or that you can allow rule your life. But again, I've said this before, government and the devil both have something in common. They get their power from our consent. Christ gave us victory at the cross, and He commissioned us in the Great Commission to do the things He did. So He's given us His authority. He's delegated that to us. So we should have victory over the things that have control over us. And I maintain that these things that have control over us, these are chains that we put on ourselves, our own bondage. And so look for those things, and consider declaring independence. Break those chains off in Jesus' name. Be done with it. Seriously, it's like a light switch. He's given you authority. The victory's won. Do it. And I'm going to end this with, I'm not going to read the Declaration of Independence, although I'd like to. I encourage you to, and read it slowly and consider it in the full context of today and how it applied to back in the day. But I will finish how they finished, okay? And hopefully you can join in with me in solidarity as I read this, and for the support of this declaration. And with the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on divine protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. You know, those words meant a lot, because those people, unlike different declarations in world history, or different uprisings, so to speak, were done by the downtrodden. These people here were the successful, and they had a lot to lose, and they knew that it would likely get cashed in on. So consider that, and enjoy this week and this weekend. Just cherish your time with your family. Consider this holiday to be Independence Day versus July 4th. It's a very critical day, and hopefully when you think of Independence Day, you can acknowledge what our founders did as representatives that were elected. But maybe Independence Day, you can focus on your own independence, where you declare independence from the things that have been held you in bondage, and with a firm reliance on divine providence, you can pledge your life, your fortune, and sacred honor to God and to your fellow countrymen. All right, folks. Thanks again for watching. Please feel free to share. God bless you, and God help us restore America. Thank you.